morning, good evening, and good night. Welcome back to another episode of the Savvital podcast. We have a very special guest, and we're including from marketing a bit this time, aren't we, Asim?
Yes, sir. We've got a sales expert, as they say, but I want you to go forward and introduce the guest today.
Definitely. So we have Mr. Paras Kyani, very good cricketing friend of mine here with us today. Took a lot of convincing to bring him here. How are you feeling, Paras?
I'm good. Thank you, first of all, Musab and Asin, for having me here. And now that we started with cricket, so we have this whole community here. So we'll get to that later as well. Thank you for introducing me, Paris Kyani, like you mentioned. And basically, I'm someone who's been in the sales department, very new to Savvital, I would say, but I feel like home here. And I'll get to how it started for me and how we're here today. So I come from very humble beginnings and raised by a single mother. My dad passed away when I was just 3. So life was tough at that time, but I give full credit to my mom, obviously, who basically sacrificed her whole life for me and my sister growing up. And we schooled from one of the best schools here in Islamabad, and I studied for 17 years in the same school. So got a little redundant, but a lot of great memories, and still the nostalgia is still there. Then moved on to NUST, NUST being one of the most reputable universities in Islamabad. Again, did my O and A levels first in sciences, then in the business studies, and then chose economics for no reason because we had no pathway, but we were just happy to get into NUST at that time. I won't lie about
I gave that Indian stress thrice, I think.
I don't know
Couldn't
how
get
I
in.
got in. Did you get it?
No, I was in barrier with you, man. I didn't get it clearly.
Same. But yeah, economics. And I thought A-level economics was what I was going to study for the next 4 years. Little did I know what I was getting into. I was running away from maths, and I got into major calculus courses and a lot of econometrics, something that I had.
Wैसे during my BBA, I was running away from math, and I found that math always catches up to you, man.
Exactly. So yeah, but somehow, one way or the other, completed the 4-year program in 4 years, thankfully. And then again, like I said, no pathways. Did a bachelor's in economics and had no clue where my career lied. Got an opportunity to work with Karim. So Karim were hiring interns for the first time for their major departments. So this was called the Special Projects Department. And the first time ever, we were having female captains for Pakistan. So I'll be very honest, the first time I got a call, got an interview, my go-to was to get into the institute, right? But once I got into it and I saw the culture there and the people, nurturing me there, I knew where my career would lie, and that would be business development. And this still till date.
Kareem, right?
This is at Karim, and I was like 24 at that time, freshly graduated from NAST. And the Women Captain project just was very close to my heart because I've been raised in a family with females playing that role.
Empowering them, basically.
Exactly, empowering them. My mom had played the role of a father and a mom. So to see we can do it on a larger scale and to give them more opportunities with more moms could work, could raise some more children who could contribute to the country and the economy in the broader spectrum. So it was a contractual thing for 4 months, and I still would say that I'm very lucky that I got those 4 months because the learnings I got there, I've used them in my personal life, in my professional life, because I had full autonomy of what I had to do, what I could do. And Alhamdulillah, I would say we managed even in the remotest parts of Pakistan. So I went for a city launch to Mardan. Mardan is a rural or a feudal area, you would say, and culturally, females are less in the workforce.
Okay, you're talking about the female captain launch even in Mardan.
So we weren't there for the female captain launch.
Okay.
We were there for the city launch for Kareem.
Okay.
And while we were there, I was coming back from the Friday prayers, and we met a female driver outside. who was just there, curious about what we were doing there. So as I was mentioning what we were doing there, she was interested. She was like, she runs her own home, does stitching to make her ends meet, and the car is the only thing she has of her own. So being from that special projects team, I just wished that we had to face a little, I would say, backlash. But the woman was 60 years of her age, and she was the first captain we registered in Mardan.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and
Both
that is
male and female.
yeah. So that
That's
was day
insane.
one in Mardan back in 2017, I would say. Yeah.
And
Yep.
so like we've had conversations about your career starting in Karim earlier on. So I was under the impression it was a full-time role. It was just a four-man contractual
It
thing.
was, yeah. So
That was
it
your
wa-
extent of the experience with Karim.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'll come to that later. So I've had mix and match with Kareem. We'll get to that just after this. So once that contract ended, I wanted to continue in that role.
Okay.
But generally the you know how organizational structures change, right?
Definitely.
So special projects did not make the cut, obviously, because Kareem globally was centralizing their operations. So we had to cut down on costs somewhere. So special projects was
I
closed down
remember
for
that.
time.
There were a lot of
Yeah.
layoffs during that
Exactly.
period too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just how
So
hierarchy works.
in the middle, I had some small gigs. I went back to my alma mater, worked in business development for an edtech company because I was in process of getting into S&P Global. So they have this whole roughly 3.5, 4 month onboarding process.
And is this where the digital payments?
No,
part-
we'll come to that later.
Okay.
So S&P was my first, I would say, global experience,
Okay.
right? Because from business development, I was getting into core sales. So
Okay.
business development is a little different from sales because sales is numbers. You're racking up the numbers, whereas business development would be where you scale those numbers as well, where those grow exponentially,
Right.
and kind of leaving a legacy behind. Right? You do something here, and for the next 6 months or a year, you're set.
Yeah.
So this thing will go on autopilot, and you've done your work. This will go automatically. Whereas when you come to sales, every month you have to give that 100% again,
Yeah.
right? So to get back to those numbers, or
So the
in
cycle
sales
is
you
much
have to
shorter.
improve on.
The cycle is much
cycles,
shorter.
Cycles shorter.
Yeah.
Cycles depend on the type of industry you're
Yep,
working in,
yep.
or the type of product or service that you are actually working for. So S&P was a global experience. I was working with my European team based out of the UK, and this was capital markets. Capital markets includes investment management firms, investment banking firms, and general, private equity firms. So predominantly, I was managing IM, investment management, and I had a team of 8 sales rep. I was supporting back then. The best part about that was because Kareem had nurtured me into someone who liked autonomy in their job, to have full control of their role. So it's not about going above your pay scale, it's more about having that voice in you where you feel you can add value. So I'm very glad that all experiences that I've had have nurtured me into that and have given me that open field where I could play my game. So I could move around 360, play where I could, I felt fit.
You felt like you were contributing.
Exactly. So for any salesman, we'll get to you as well, Asin, because you are from the sales department. For every salesman, you would say the achievement is where you've added value to something. Right?
100%.
When you get that feedback that you contributed to this growth, be it very little, but it's just that one line where you see the achievement and you can see that baby growing that you worked on for a long time. So we overachieved the quota for that year that I was there, and the quotas for S&P are very tough. The market
I've
is
heard
very
so,
tough.
yeah.
And all those products are more like services and are digital products. So they're more about ratings and different bifurcations of those ratings at S&P, and especially in the IM firms. Best part would be the exposure that I got there.
Definitely.
So being in a sales support role, I did not expect to be in those pricing meetings or to be giving those demos to people who've been in the IM segment for around 25 to 30 years. And I was just 1 year into my career. So I thank them because at very early on in my career, I had the platform where I could, spread my wings. And I had some hiccups, obviously. The first two demos, I messed up a little. But instead of getting, some negativities
It's a
around
learning
it,
curve.
it's a learning curve. That's
That
what
was
my
supported
manager-
by the organization,
Exactly.
unlike most places.
Exactly. And I did not expect to get another demo. Right?
Okay.
So that was from where I was coming in from. But whereas my manager was like, you'll go solo in the next
Okay.
demo because the sales rep sits with you in the demo.
Yeah.
I went in solo for the third demo.
Okay.
And that is when I did my best.
That's amazing.
So maybe it could be the pressure that I had.
Most
but
probably was.
Because I was still very new to it,
Yeah.
right? And it was sales and I was very new to it. And from that day forward, I knew, I can do this. The confidence was back because I knew my organization is backing me up.
Yep.
And now I have the confidence to do it. What I did was I gave that demo and then we set them up for trial and that it got converted into a closed won opportunity. And the deals were of big values at that time, right? So the product is a little expensive and the Fortune 500 are mostly your customers.
Do you have like a ballpark figure of what the deals
Sure. So I'll
size
tell you,
was?
I'll tell you. So our IM segment quota for the year needed to be $7.1 million, right? It looks less when I say it was larger values.
Doesn't.
But the thing is, people don't buy it every day.
Yeah.
So, right, it's more of a 1 year deal. So, or a 6 month deal. So, no smaller
So
deals.
like a 6 month yearly retainer.
Retainer, right?
Okay.
So, the trials are free,
Yeah.
but they run out after 2 weeks max or 3 weeks if we're extending it. So, that deal was around 300,000. Then it came out growing up and we ended the year, I believe, roughly around 11.7 million.
That's amazing.
So overachieving our quota.
By about roughly 4 million.
4 million.
Yeah. And that is when I got to know that, although we overachieved, but that wasn't like amazing achievement. Because for any salesman, if you did 7.1 was set because they did around 6.5 the last year,
Yeah.
right? So 7.1 was the bare minimum
Yeah.
figure.
Like a break
that-
even.
Exactly.
Okay.
So 11.5 was amazing numbers, obviously, but the next year was definitely going to be tough
Yeah.
because now you've set the bar high
For yourself.
for ourselves.
Yeah.
But the best part was we did it as a team.
Yeah.
So 9 people working for a single manager, amazing stuff. They gave me tips how to, for my future roles as well, where I could learn management as well.
Yeah.
Because we have a predominant way of working here where a manager does not delegate.
Yeah.
It's more about you need to just work for me rather than the organization.
Yeah.
There is no growth in that. You don't learn, then we create another generation of such managers and the cycle goes on.
Yeah.
So I think that is where our generation, I'm sorry, my generation, because I've
Wait. Hold up.
Shout out
How old are
millennials.
you? How old are you,
So
buddy?
I'm turning 30 this year.
That's what we
Okay.
millennials versus Gen
Still
Z
young.
in this
Yeah.
spot.
30 years young.
30 years young. Yeah. I'm still young at heart, I would say. But my generation, I would still say early 90s, very different from you guys. Not dissing anybody, but
But yes.
I would say I would choose to use the word different here. Yeah. But I think it was a great change for Cycle as well. All the managers there, they would support you. And then I left S&P because I got married the next year and I was working a night shift. Right, so because single mother and I had
And
to
now
sort
you're
some,
back.
yeah. So I'll come to that,
Yeah.
how this fits in as well, because this was a very calculated.
How does marriage change the way that you like operate? Obviously, you're growing your career, and when you're single, when you're a bachelor, you've got only yourself to worry about and only yourself to work on, obviously. But when obviously a partner comes into your life, it changes a lot of dynamics.
So, Asin, you're right about that. Your life completely shifts. And if it doesn't, I think there's something wrong with you. Because I think
In you or the other person?
in you for sure. I would say as a guy,
Yeah.
it's high time you stop being a boy,
100%.
right? You do your thing, but you need to now manage
Yeah,
expectations.
you need to rise to the occasion.
Yeah. So you need to manage all stakeholders there. And this one person is technically the most important person you'll have for the rest of your life. So I think you owe it to them, right? It goes either way, but in my case, obviously, my wife has always been very supportive of my decisions, and we do it. The best part is we do it with a consensus. So it's always my go-to person would always be my spouse.
That's amazing.
Right?
That's
So how it changed, you ask? I used to be a very carefree person. I used to be very immature, and my decision making was everywhere. I I was very clueless in a lot of maybe made personal decisions and or professional decisions. But I still say to my wife that marrying her was the best decision of my life, and this is how it is.
She would be very happy to hear this clip. All right, Saad, we need to
Yeah,
clip
clip
this
kar
and send
lena.
to her.
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
she sees this.
I need
Points,
those
brownie points.
So it's changed me completely, and not just that. It's the support that you get. You have a personal safe space or a personal mentor, I would say. Even when you believe you're at your lowest point, there is that one person who picks you up. So I'll come to that how that happened to me. So the reason I left S&P was because my first love, Karim, came calling back.
Okay.
So it was a very tough decision because I was very happy and performing at S&P, but I felt like I had unfinished business at Karim, and I owed it to go back to it. So I join in, and this is the year COVID hits, and it's very early onset. So first month on the job, the offices are closed. I'm working remotely.
Yep.
I was bound to flight to Dubai because there were special flights at that time.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of days before that, this was my 30th day on the job back at Karim.
Okay.
And we have a company-wide huddle or a hands-on meeting that we called it. And we got layoffs. So the company had to make budget cuts because of COVID and the forecasting that it did. And obviously being a new hire, I was one of those.
Within the first month.
30th day. I remember it completely because day 1 to day 29, everything's going fine. Day 30th morning, you get this email that there's an all hands meeting going on, and that is the only agenda of the meeting.
So, heard about these, they're pretty brutal. A friend of mine got laid off the same way. Imagine हमारा huddle होता है ना. Imagine that huddle lines up. You have all the senior management there.
And everyone's
and
in
they're
front of
like,
everyone.
if you got this email by, right?
Yeah.
That's the way. Imagine, imagine that.
So I was pretty numb, because newly married, a lot of responsibilities, still learning things, right? And now you don't have a job, and with COVID coming in full force, you don't know how the job market will be.
Yeah.
So I had no idea what to do now, and I was kind of in a depression, I would say. So the one person, or I would say as a collective, the only thing that I hoped from was family, and I think they supported me like anything. And next thing I know, I randomly get, because at this time the next part that we're getting into is digital payments that you mentioned earlier. I had no clue about digital payments.
Okay.
So by that time, I only had one debit card, and I only used it for using it at the ATM.
Yeah.
So no clue how online payments work, how online shopping worked,
Especially the back end of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I get a random call from a recruiter, and they're like, "We're looking for a manager in Islamabad." And I was like, I don't have prior experience, and they're looking for a manager. I'm definitely not getting into it. But because I was pretty desperate and I was in a fix, so I went into the interview with full confidence, knowing that I had to make it. So the best part about that interview was I just talked about my prior experience and what I have gone through and what I was willing to do. And I think what I've learned on jobs is that always give you 100%. The results are always out of your hand. The factors, the external factors, you can never control them. But I never took the layoff to my heart, right? The initial shock was there, but the recovery was so smooth that I believe that was for the good. So I don't regret it now. Great. Yeah. So I'm more stronger in my decision making now. Yep.
I think so. Looking back on any situation in your life, you can always connect the dots. You can always try to find a lesson from your hardships and stuff. So yeah, it makes
not
sense.
just hardships, I would say even from your success as well, right?
Okay.
Because what you did right will help you in the future. If not you, because you knew the trick to it. If you can impart it to at least one more individual, it might help them down the line. So I think it goes hand in hand. The hardships or success, you need to manage it out and never regret your decisions or how life is. Because for the longest time, I used to blame situations, and over time, I learned that I'm in control and I need to take the hold of things. Yeah.
Yeah, so before we move on to other things, before we move on from the background, I know we've spoken very extensively about your trajectory, especially your career trajectory, very comprehensive analysis of all of that. And I'm sure the young workforce at Savvital will have a lot to learn from that, because I feel like I'd say 50% of our workforce who are just starting out, right? So we're very lucky to have people like you who have been through a few industries, tenured people, and who have experience, who have, I'd say, a diverse platter of corporate experience such as you. So before I move on to just Savvital, I want to touch upon S&P specifically, because you mentioned that was European markets, right?
Yeah.
So the transition from a European market to now a North American market specifically. So I just wanna brief outro on how you think those that brief exposure helped you from the European markets, and how you think that international market might be different from this international market. That's something we'd be very interested in.
Sure. So I would say there's a huge difference.
Is there like obviously, like Musa was just asking you, what's the sort of cultural difference that you have to face when you're dealing with clients from Europe and North America as well?
So what I've noticed, so I'll compare it to now and then as well. So Europeans, what I found was a very cutthroat in their approach. So yeah, and there's less room for error there, right? So they're less open to. I'm not saying there's a negativity in it, but they like to get things done, right?
Yeah.
At that hour. So our culture is a little laid back. So it was a little new experience for me, where you don't have room to exercise some, I would say.
You mitigate the risk that you take.
Exactly. So you have to be very, very specific about what you're saying, what you're doing, because in that experience as well, like I mentioned earlier, these people were in the market for 30 years, people I was dealing with. So you could not mess it up, although I did at the start, but I learned from those mistakes very early on. So there are cultural differences. I would say UK was a little different. But as we went on to the Netherlands and part of Germany, things were a little different.
Yeah.
If I compare Europe on its own as well. Now coming back to the US, my time here with the US client, but this is the first time I worked with the US client. So it's been very nice, and we're more like, rather than being remote employees, I feel like we work in the same, I would say, organization, or under the same roof.
That's
Because
how you know it's working.
Yeah, because we connected on that level. We've had some dry months, because I would like to go about it. I work in the construction industry now, right?
Yeah.
So the things are pretty seasonal.
Before we
Yeah.
jump into that, I just want to leave a disclaimer. So you set appointments for your
I do.
client?
Yeah.
So you're an appointment setter?
Exactly. So I make B2B and B2C, so business to business and business to consumer or customer.
Perfect.
Appointments for my client based out of Minnesota. Now we're covering some parts of Wisconsin as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So yes, we were talking about the transition, and here at Savvital with an American client from a North American. So yeah, on that part is.
Yeah. So I work with Shelter Construction LLC. And this is, I would say, the first client that we've had in the sales department.
And
that
what do you do specifically for shelter construction?
So I do appointment setting for them, and that is around businesses and homeowners as well.
So
Right.
that's B2B
And B2C as well.
Alright.
So we're more focused on B2C right now.
And do you do both yourself, or is one person with one segment like B2C and B2B?
No. So technically, me and I have a counterpart, Zoya Tahir, who's working with me, and we both do the same work.
Okay.
And she handles the marketing of Shelter as well. So she handles the Facebook handle of Shelter as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how the work is divided. So we both make B2B and B2C calls.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned, we're more focused on B2C, because the recent storms have affected homeowners more. So certain areas, and the only downside of our market is that it's very storm dependent, right?
Seasonal, yeah.
It's seasonal. So appointment setting can get a little hard. We
Yeah.
have dry months. We've had a couple of months that were a little dry because we started off pretty good, and I would like to humbly brag a little about it.
Please do.
Because me and Zoya combined in our first, I would say, 30 days at the job, and this is the first month I'm talking about. The
Correct.
first month we started working, we converted 22 homeowners into jobs.
That must amount in a lot of money.
Yeah. So
How
and
much?
I would say a certain deal. It costs a lot. It's roughly a ballpark figure would be 100,000. No, so I'm talking about a single deal.
Oh,
Right. So this is how the roofing industry works. So in the last 5 years or so, people who've worked in different industries have started shifting to the construction
Yeah.
industry
Yeah.
because this was a very untapped market,
Yeah.
and we have private construction, contractors
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of, I would say, competition here as well. So it's first movers advantage.
I love the fact how so there's two associates from Savvital working with the same client. They didn't think that one was enough because their demands were higher. They had a bigger ideal. They wanted to grow really fast. They got on two people from the same team. Both of them have done an amazing job, and like you just said, so Zoya's now evolved into a marketing role
Yeah.
as well as sales.
She
So
does
everyone's-
double the work. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I would say.
amazing.
yeah. And as her senior associate, I'd like to shout out myself. Shout out Zoya.
Yeah.
I know this because she's working really hard. She's been working on making complex landing pages for them, learning things off of scratch. So I know how hard this pair works for Shelter, and they're one of
And I
our happier
can,
clients.
being in the thick of it, I can vouch for it because those marketing posts and her ideas
Oh, yeah.
have generated a lot of traction for
Definitely.
And
Shelter
then
as well.
obviously you working in that team and helping her reach that target of 22 accounts that you've actually brought on to the company.
Exactly.
It's obviously a great deal.
And that too in a very volatile market, because I thought I wouldn't have much insight to this, but learning that they work with a construction client. So my guy who's a
Yeah,
public
yeah.
adjuster, Josh,
Yeah.
in Wisconsin, the adjustment firm, they have more or less the same seasonal cycles, right, with the construction and stuff. And it's a very, Josh just doesn't just depend on this business. Obviously, that is a side business of his. But I do know how volatile it can get, how frustrating those dry weeks, dry months can get. So you have to be very persistent with this stuff. You have to be very steadfast with
In
this stuff.
fact, I'm just gonna ask Paris, what do you do? Like mentally, what headspace do you go into when you run into those,
True.
phases of-
So it depends usually, because over time being in sales, I've learned it the hard way. I would say
Yeah.
that some things are out of your control, but you just keep on trying. You need to think out of the box. So I'll touch upon it as well. That while there were no recent storms and there were no recent works needed, I had an idea one day that Savvital, being a huge platform with over, I would say, 60 clients that we have, our associates working with multiple clients in the insurance sector. So one of the first tasks that I did for Shelter and Matt, my point of contact or my sales rep at Shelter, was reaching out to insurance agents in Minnesota. So what we did was we called it the retention program, and we collaborated with insurance agents to get more, I would say, leads or work out of it, and it worked for both ways. So we had exactly. So we helped them file more claims, and we were getting more work for our organization. So as we were doing it via LinkedIn and all, so I had an idea. I talked to my manager here, and then we kept on talking, and we thought about the idea that we have clients, insurance clients, working in Minnesota for Savvital. So we had a good rapport with them, and we could, use those contacts, and we could establish a new, I would say, channel or avenue from where we can get leads. So two of our current Savvital clients got on board with Shelter, and we managed to bridge them together. And I feel that this is just the start, and Savvital being that huge pool connecting different sectors and industries can go a long way, and we can add more industries, and everything is connected to insurance.
When you're synergizing, obviously your efforts, it leads to great results. And then again, you were just discussing those dry phases. So I think so. It's very important for you to get creative as a sales associate, maybe even as a salesperson, when things aren't working out, because obviously in the landscape of sales, it is seasonal.
Yeah.
It happens. There are phases when you're doing amazing. There are phases when you don't get to obviously close all the deals that you want to.
Exactly.
And at that time, you just need to stay upbeat about the vision that you have. It's not necessarily about the results that you're getting in that few weeks. And you have to mentally go into a headspace where you can find a place and where you can basically just operate at a level where you're bringing that creativity to the organization, obviously, and you're like just keeping that spark alive within yourself.
Yeah. That is true. We just need to avoid the negative parts of it, right? Always, even if it's you had a bad day at the office, just go in with a fresh mind, and that is something even after 7 years I've found it hard. But like I mentioned, Zoya, my counterpart, this is one thing that I've learned from her, that if something's not working out, give it a break. Clear your headspace and then get back into it once you're ready for it. So that has worked for her and for me as well.
You know what Paris's statement's crux was right now? Positive intent के साथ खेलते हैं हम.
True.
बस
Yes.
positive, just
Yes.
play a positive game. On that note, I want to talk about the sense of community here at Savvital, because what is Savvital if not the community? It's a personal anecdote with Paris and I. When he came into the office, obviously, he's a tenured person. Paris, as we like to call him, Paris Bhai, because he's much older than us. There was a sense of respect, but how we eased in. I want to talk about the community that we built with Paris and a few of our other guys here at Savvital. Shout out Shahrukh, shout out Uzair, and the others I'm forgetting. Even Zohaib, yeah, big part of that. How could I forget? We used to sit down, we still do, and talk in our spare time for endless times about cricket, about the cricket team. Paris is someone who's really passionate about the game. He's someone that gives me some competition in terms of passion, and that's a statement coming from me because I am arrogant about this. He's even scored tickets for me for a Pakistan-New Zealand match. So Paris, about cricket and about that sense of community, I feel like that's something that we started right off the bat when you came here. What did that do for you while entering an organization?
All you said is very true, Masud, but apart from cricket, before we touch upon cricket, it's the general community that I've found here.
Yeah.
I've fit in so quick, and like you mentioned, the age gap.
Yeah.
So roughly anybody closest to me was around 5 years younger than me, right? I could never feel that difference.
Yeah.
So there was a sense of respect from everybody I met, but I treated them more like a friend, an older brother, and it's because how welcoming everybody was, including you, Asin. Shout out to Saad as well. I'm sorry. Saad as
That's
well.
how old he is.
Yeah.
Guess name.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. Once you get to the 30s, you'll see. So then cricket was a huge part of it, because all my life I've been very passionate about cricket. I used to play cricket before I broke my elbow, and
I dislocated my shoulder. Same story.
yeah.
Your ACLs.
But what do we say? I think it was worth it.
Yeah, it is. It's worth it.
So cricket, I think for any Pakistani, especially for my generation, I would say again, we grew up upon one sport. So we see football
It's a
growing
national
now.
sport here.
Yeah,
Or
it's more of a
religion. It's a religion. Yeah.
It's more of a religion, like
Yeah.
Musab said. Everybody, even people who don't watch cricket all year long, when it comes to the tournaments, everybody is hooked to their TVs, be it
It's about
work
to be
hours.
that season in a few
So,
weeks.
yeah.
Mr. Musab, when does that season start?
For us, 25th October.
The World Cup?
No, the series with Afghanistan. Then
25th
August, yes, sorry. And then you have the Asia Cup on the 31st, and then you have the World Cup on the 4th. For us, on the 10th of October.
And when is the match, the
Pakistan
most
versus India.
anticipated
I have
match
it on my Google Calendar.
of every single Pakistani?
I think it's the 15th.
I think so. It's been brought back a
Yeah,
couple of
so
days maybe.
the
Change हो गया. I know 6, 10, 14.
14th
Yeah.
of
It's
October.
on my Google Calendar, guys. That's how obsessed I am. Yeah.
Yeah, so it will be 1:30 p.m. on the 14th of October.
साथ बैठेंगे dance.
I will see you guys there.
Yeah, and obviously that's just the first of many, because obviously we'll be playing the final and then winning it.
Yeah.
So
Shout out Babar Azam.
we will be celebrating
Yeah.
it together.
Yeah, we'll be
Hopefully.
like
Yes.
2 months of festivities to come.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hope you're listening, Bobby. कर लो यार हमारे लिए कर लो. Yeah.
So yeah, so cricket has been something very amazing, and it gives you that team spirit as well. So does football, obviously, but like Musab said, cricket has more become a religion for us, and we breathe cricket, right? So started playing from the roads to breaking lights at home, and breaking glass at home, being grounded for a week, still
Been there.
yeah. So that's how it has been.
And it's amazing how that sort of passion, everyone shares it. It's a shared experience for everyone over here at Savvital.
Exactly. So, and this is something that's not attached to age at all. So even the oldies like me are still that
Especially the
passionate.
oldies like you, because the great generation are of our 90s team.
Yeah, and we've seen the worst of times
And the best of
but
times.
best of times as well. And now we're on the up, and we are looking up to. So the younger generations would see a very invincibility.
Hopefully. I hope so. I hope we get the trophy. I hope we get the trophy in many aspects of our lives.
So enough about cricket. Can't believe I'm saying that. लेकिन फिर भी. So we are talking about how that culture was welcoming, how it made you feel so welcome here at Savvital. We have not just a cricket community. वो तो मैं obsessed हूँ अलग बात है, लेकिन because we have so many communities here, there's going to be 5-6 splinter of people who are so passionate about something, and they might be people from such different backgrounds.
And they all overlap.
Yeah, and they might be from a multitude of backgrounds, but they'll still end up in the same place. And I think that's what's beautiful about our company, because I've become friends with people who are so different than me. Not in a bad way, just different. Different is different, right? And you interact with them because of a common shared interest. So we're not only an organization, we're not only a revenue generating stream for our great clients, we're also this place where individuals can be themselves and find comfort in people alike, right?
100%.
So
I would agree, and I would add to it that so 7 years I've been in the workforce.
yeah,
This arguably has been the most fun place that I've worked in.
Yeah.
So the best part is that the productivity is so high, yet we have every time so much fun. Yeah. So we have those retreats, right?
Yeah.
To take our minds off. We have those sports events. We have different events, different.
We need a reason to celebrate, honestly, in this office.
And you want to come to the office, right? So it's not like I've had days when I didn't want to go into office for my work because I could not look forward to those fun parts. Sometimes work is tough and you try to avoid those days.
Yeah.
But the best part about Savvital has been that, even if you're having the worst of days, work-wise, people around you would
they lift
push.
you up.
Yeah, they lift you up. So they lift you up, the moods are up, the productivity is higher. So I think we have a huge and a great platform, and we will together go places.
Yeah, so yep. So raving about the culture and all of that, I want to shift it to the sales team as an ending point.
Yeah, 100%.
My sales
100%.
boys, my senior sales associate
go.
Asan Asif and Paras. I just want to end this podcast with the recap of how you would be very familiar with this. Paras came into the sales team. You would have a lot of input, and Paras, you yourself would have a lot of input. How you came into the sales team, how the integration was, how Savvital is the place to be for all the sales clients that haven't yet, for whatever reason, not signed up with Savvital. Why haven't they? I want to get into that as an ending note.
Well, honestly, I think so. It's a couple of different things. The most important probably factor to success for any employee who's working in an organization is they should just feel welcomed. They should just feel at home. They should feel like they are adding value, like we talked about before on this podcast. And that's exactly what I, as a senior sales associate, try to do. I try to incorporate everyone who comes into the team and make them feel like they've been here or they've known each other for a very long time. We've got processes within our organization. We've got practices that we follow where it's starting to become second nature for each and every sales associate to start sharing their knowledge.
Yep.
In a nutshell. And I've seen you grown a lot over the past couple of months since you started working here. I just want to finally take your opinion on it, because obviously I might be slightly biased to the sales department.
No, not at all. Azin, the thing is, I was coming in as a tenured or an experienced person in the sales department, right?
Yeah.
So, but my personal opinion was a little different from that because it was still very new. Prospecting or appointment setting was something that I did very less in my career. I was more of the closer in my career. So that is also part of the sales process that comes in the end where you're negotiating. But throughout the process, the basic part is prospecting, where you bring the customer on board, right? So the job that we do here is connecting those prospects and converting them into.
Give me a couple of quick tips for any appointment setter out there.
I'd be interested in that with like
a
layman like me.
Who wants to basically learn the art of appointment setting or something that would just help them get better at their craft.
Perfect. So there are a lot of things that go around, but I would say you have like 30 seconds, right? Those are make or break. So you need to go in prepared, and how Savvital helped me, because I was never a prospector or an appointment setter. So it was a little hard for me because I used to start off with the negotiation directly.
Yeah.
So learning from you and the environment that you've set where people come up with their feedbacks, I've learned that you need to empathize with people, right? And you need to address their pain points. You don't need to start off with a sales pitch directly. You go in casually, like you're having a conversation with someone, and you're trying to help the other person out.
This is music to my ears. Yeah. Honestly, if you can. So the thing with cold outreach or cold calling or cold emailing, whatever it is, you've got to be able to connect very, very, very quickly. Musab, and also you have to build trust, and you have to clearly define the end objective of whatever you're trying to make them do. So if you're trying to set an appointment, you need to basically inform them enough. But when you're calling them out of the blue, they could be in the middle of anything, literally. And I've had times where I've called CEOs who are standing in the rain at a very busy junction, very noisy junction, and they're agitated and they don't want to hear what I have to say. But then again, I have to empathize with them. Yes. And realize, all right, this is probably not a good time for me to even ask them for 10 minutes next week. So I'll just call them back maybe half an hour later when they are in their office. So yeah, you have to, human interactions and human connections is the fundamental of sales and closing. So it's not about selling something. You're supposed to close the other person. You're supposed to give them a solution for a problem that you have isolated by asking them questions. Yeah. And then you can
people don't realize it, how they grow personally as well, having those conversations.
Yes, 100%.
Because any person who learns the art of communication, right, where you can engage someone to listen to you. I think that's the best skill one can have. Whatever sector they're working in, you need to sell yourself, right? You need to be, out there helping them out where they feel like they need you. Rather than even in cold calling, like Asin said. So this is one thing that I've learned from Asin, because you need them to want you, right? Because you calling, like he mentioned, you're calling a CEO who's standing in the rain, who might have an urgent meeting coming up, and you were never on their agenda. So getting those 2 minutes at that time and then setting up an appointment.
Yeah. So probably not a good idea.
Yeah. So you wait it out. So you put it in your pipeline, and you always know you can come back another day, because if you push it that way and you lose it forever. But this way you have another go at it on a better time, on a better setting. So there's more hope for it. People tend to go with scripted conversations. So having a gist in your mind is good, but never go
sticking to
word
it,
by
yeah.
word for it, because the the things are different, the people's moods are different. So you need to be ready for all sorts of rebuttals, and for that I think Asin has taken the initiative to set up this whole bi-weekly meeting that we have. The whole sales department sits in it, coming from different sectors. So me and Zoya are from the construction industry, the others are from the insurance industry. Everybody has different feedbacks coming in. But I've learned some rebuttals that have helped me, because it's the art of communication that
Yep.
we're learning.
Yeah.
What I'm getting is, as an outsider from the sales department, the world of sales, is patience and persistence.
Oof.
Patience, as that's gonna take you a long way in your guys'
Yeah.
world, right?
There's a lot to it in sales. Honestly, it starts with the mind,
Yep.
starts with the mindset that you have,
Yep.
and like you said, strategies, tips, tricks. Obviously, we'll be touching upon all of them as time progresses. But if you've got your mind in the right place in these fields, I think so you're always going to be successful. So, and I think on that bombshell, let's dip.
Thank you so much, Paris.
Thank you
It's,
guys. Thank you
it-
for having me actually.
The 30-40 minutes, whatever it was, it didn't feel like them at all.
And-
Flew by.
I keep talking about how we need
was
to make
it,
these
was
shorter.
it because you guys slept through it, or was it interesting?
No, we didn't. No. It's always whenever we're having a nice conversation with a buddy of ours at this podcast. We had this issue with Mashal too. It's not an issue. It's a blessing that you don't realize that you're going overboard with time, because the conversation just flows. And I feel like we could have done this for another hour. We wouldn't get bored, but our viewers
Same
might.
way I
Our viewers
enjoyed
might.
my time, and
Yep.
I usually don't talk this much.
Yeah.
But Savvital has taught me to,
Another
talk a
skill.
lot, and willing to impart whatever experiences, knowledge
that's
that I
what
have,
that's the
and
beauty of this
learning new
place.
things as
For
well.
someone who doesn't talk that much, I think so you're doing a very good job as a sales associate. So
Thank you.
on that bombshell,
Guys, thank you so much for joining us for another episode. Now we're gonna pass it on to Saar to make these into reels just right after. That's on, like in 10 minutes. I should see you at your Mac. He's probably gonna do it. He's probably gonna do it, but like he just goes into it. So thank you so much,
Yeah,
guys,
lights out.
for your time. We'll see you in another episode very soon. Bye.
Thank you.